You probably already know that colostrum is the first step in starting calves off right. But what are the other factors that come into play? Welcome to Beyond Colostrum, the show where we'll talk about how to optimize your calves with science and research that goes beyond just colostrum. We'll challenge the ways you typically manage your calves, and you might learn some new concepts beyond what you're already used to. Thanks for joining us as we go beyond colostrum. Hey, good day. This is Michael Cho, Managing Director of Saskatoon Colostrum. I'm here with Dr. Travis White and Dr. Mike Nagorski, technical veterinarians with the same company, and we want to talk about how do we keep newborn calves alive when they're born into these lovely North American winters. So Mike and Travis, when it's cold, why can't calves just warm themselves up like me in my vest?
Well, they can to some degree. So calves are born with this unique adipose tissue or fat called brown fat. They've got about 1 to 2% of their body weight is in this form of brown fat, and that brown fat is uniquely positioned to help that calf to thermoregulate during the first few hours of its life. Now, dam nutrition and a lot of other things play an important role on how much of this adipose tissue is there, but these calves are born with this unique brown fat, and as long as we do everything we can to ensure that everything's going right, then this brown fat can help them thermoregulate. Not only brown fat, but they also rely on shivering. So about 60% of their thermoregulatory capacity comes from shivering. And then the other 40% is from this brown fat metabolism.
Yeah. And so I think it's so unique when you bring that up, Travis, because you look at, okay, so if an animal has to defend its body temperature from cold, we know thermoneutral zone, which means, the animal doesn't have to expend more energy to thermoregulate, is around that, 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. And there's the two ways you're talking. It's either shivering or the brown fat metabolism. And when you think about that animal's ability, to your point, with 60% being shivering, 40%, the metabolism of brown fat, pretty unique in terms of that brown fat in that small animal only comprises 1 to 2% of its body weight. So I think it's pretty darn profound that in animals, 40% of its ability comes from just 1 to 2% of that animal's body weight. I mean, that brown fat, talk about a potent source of thermoregulatory ability for that animal.
Yeah. And, Mother Nature kind of set it up in a perfect form, right? So this animal is going to be born with a certain amount of sugars and proteins that it can burn via shivering. And it's also going to have this brown fat that it can utilize. And so Mother Nature has set it up perfectly. And as long as, we put all the pieces in place, then, that calf is off to a healthy start and can thermoregulate. When things go awry, then, this brown fat may not be adequate and will replete the calf of sugar stores and things like that for shivering.
Interesting. So what you guys are saying is that the colostral fat is the key to getting that little creature to use its own supplies, not just depending on its own supplies to start up. That's an interesting proposition. So can these calves be fed any kind of colostrum placer on the market to help with this shivering thermoregulation function, or is it just the maternal colostrum? Help me out with this.
I think when we look at the market, what's probably, if we're talking about colostrum replacers, we know that maternal colostrum is approximately 22% colostral fat, okay, on a crude fat basis. So you look at all the different types of colostrum replacers on the market right now, there's many of them that are only maybe 5% fat. And that fat source is animal or vegetable fat, coconut oil, mineral oil. There's all these different kinds of fats too. So not only do they not have enough crude total fat, it's not of the right source of fat. That's going to induce that brown fat metabolism.
Yeah, colostral fat is, it's a unique compound in that it stimulates this brown fat to be mobilized and utilized. It also extends the longevity of it, right? So if a calf is born in extremely cold temperatures and does not consume any colostrum, then it may replete that brown fat within, minutes to hours, depending on the ambient temperature. But we know that if a calf ingests an adequate amount of colostral fat, then that brown fat can be extended for 10 to 12 hours. So it gives them a much longer period of time to thermoregulate. And again, you think of colostral fat much like the stimulant that gets the ball rolling. So it's the lighter that ignites the fire of brown fat. And so and we don't know about these other fat sources. I don't know if there's been any research done to see what the effect on brown fat is, but our guess is that it's minimal. That colostral fat is a unique source that has to be in there to be able to mobilize this brown fat metabolism.
So this brown fat, I mean, it's like, it's like jet fuel for these calves. If they don't have that match to light that spark, that match is colostral fat or colostrum in general in its mother nature's form to spark that jet fuel to be metabolized and provide that animal with the thermoregulatory ability it can.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like me and my bonfire up here in Canada when it's minus 42. I could spend a lot of time playing with a little sparker and trying to get some kindling going, or I could use the equivalent of colostrum, which would be jet fuel, drop a couple ounces into the bin, drop a match, and boom, all that brown fat, aka the wood, is going. And
yep.
I'm not worried about my thermoregulation anymore.
Yep. And not only just the brown fat, but again, that potent colostral fat is also a potent energy source in and of itself. And so where brown fat is intended to help these calves thermoregulate for a short period of time in the first, day or two of their life, having that colostral fat as an extended fat source that keeps them, keeps that energy up, keeps thermoregulation going. It's more bioavailable or more highly digestible than other fat sources, and so it's more readily available for that calf to use.
All right. So it's the value of the colostrum isn't just the match; it actually has heat power, just like jet fuel itself.
Yep,
it's a good point, Dr. White. Dr. Nagorski, I understand you raise beef calves. Do you use this material yourself with your animals?
Yes, I do. I think even on the beef cow calf side, you look compared to even dairy calves, failure of passive transfer is a big thing. But I think, what we want to do and accomplish on a calf in terms of beef cow calf is we do want to get that calf up and going and actually on mom and suckling. And one of the key ways you can do that is feed a colostrum supplement, which is going to bring in this colostral fat if it's a good wholesome colostrum replacer. And one of the things that does is it gets the calf up and going. They've done studies and looked at heat production in not only calves but even piglets, and have noted that colostrum intake directly correlates with the amount of heat production and basically thermoregulatory ability in piglets and even in calves and sheep and those things. They've been animals I've studied with it. So, one of the ways to get that animal up, and we talked about that muscle contraction will actually in the first couple hours, they've actually done studies on this where it's increased heat production by 100% in that first hour just by getting that calf up to stand, right? So when we give, and I do this on my own farm, we give a colostrum supplement to approximately 30 to 40% of the calves. Part of that is just getting that energy into that calf so it gets up and moves around, and that's what we want, right? Especially in cold weather climates. And I'm living here in Southwest Minnesota. So.
Well, Dr. White, Dr. Nagorski, thanks for talking about how we get the calves warm and the thermoregulation business and the role of the colostral fat. I think there's a lot of nuances there, but a worthy discussion, and I look forward to hearing more about this later. Thank you for watching today's show. If you have questions about something you heard today, or maybe you have a topic you'd like us to address, leave us a message on Facebook. We'll talk again on Beyond Colostrum.